Okay, so Code Section 179, we talked about briefly before. When I first went into practice myself, the number that you could write off in 1 year was just $10,000. That was it. And it stayed there for many, many years. Then 9/11 came, which was obviously a tragic story, especially here in New York. But Congress acted, President signed the bill, and they wanted to stimulate the economy. They wanted to get us out of a mess that we're in because it caused a lot of financial hardship. And basically they expanded the Section 179 all the way up to $100,000 per year. As time went on, more financial crises took place. That number now is over $1 million. So theoretically, if you set up your own dental practice this year, if you spend as much as $1,080,000, you're going to be able to write off that full amount in the current year. That could be a game changer if you have sufficient profits. Now, another question for you. If you're entitled to deduct that, let's assume you spent $500,000 worth of equipment, should you write off that full equipment and take Section 179 in that year you bought the equipment? What's that?
If you made a lot more money on that, yes.
Right. And the answer I was looking for, that's more precise. Many of the questions I'm going to ask you today, the answer is going to be, it depends, right? So you always got to look at the facts and circumstances. So very often I'll have a young dentist, they came in, they just started a practice. They say, John, I'm excited, I'm going to build out this practice in 3 months. And then I tell them, no, you're not. It's going to take you 6 to 9 months. And sure enough, 9 months later, they got all the permits, they finally got to see their first patient, but now it's already November. So from November to December, they barely made any money. They have a huge amount of expenses, and they also have $100,000 of Section 179 that they think they should take. What I tell them is, we're not taking it. Why am I not taking it? Because in this particular year, their tax bracket may be 0. Why take a deduction in a year when you're in the lowest possible tax bracket? So what do I tell them? In those situations, I'm going to say, maybe we could take some, only if it makes sense. Let's assume they have some sort of tax rate. But generally in those cases, I'm going to elect out of Section 179 and bonus depreciation. Instead, I'm going to spread it out over a number of years, because if this year they're in a 0% tax bracket, which is very likely, based on the story I just told you, unless they kept their full-time job the whole time they were building out the practice, chances are next year maybe they'll be in a 20, maybe 25% tax bracket. But by the time they're in a 50% tax bracket, which hopefully will be 3-4 years down the road, if you had the choice of taking a $100,000 tax deduction this year when you're in a 10% tax bracket, that $100,000 deduction will save you how much? $10,000. If you have the option of taking that $100,000 deduction in the year you're in a 50% tax bracket, that's going to save you $50,000. The point of my story is, tax planning, you don't do it inside a box, right? We got to look at the whole picture. So if no one's looking at the full financial picture, they may be taking deductions when you need them the least. We want to take those deductions not when it's to the government's advantage, but when it's to your advantage. Again, what are we talking about? It's a game of chess, right? You against the government. And I'm going to make you win. At least I hope. Okay, so continuing down the line, for many years, if you did improvements to your property, whether you own the property or not, you were required to write off those property improvements over 39 years. Horrible law, right? So you bought something, you built it out, you put in new walls, new floors, did all these major renovations, you're getting a very small tax deduction over a long period of time. So again, going back in, I think it was 3 years ago, when Trump passed this tax bill, he said, let's find a way to stimulate small business owners to expand, right? Open up more practices, create more revenue streams, create more jobs. So he created this special tax law, and he said, if you do improvements to the interior of your property, you could actually take a Section 179 deduction. You don't have to write it off over 39 years. You could write it off all in 1 year. Now again, Improvements to the interior. What are we talking about? Floors, walls, ceilings, lighting fixtures. Anything that's in the interior would qualify. But if you're enlarging your building, let's say you have a 2,000 square foot office right now, you have property next door, you turn it into 3,000 square foot building, anything that was related to enlarging the practice size, that doesn't fall under this category. That part you have to do over 39 years. If you have elevators or escalators in the building, they don't count as well. And also internal structural work. So if you're putting support beams in, that doesn't count. And then another loophole there, certain exterior work also counts for this. You put in a new roof on your building, new HVAC, fire protection system, alarm system. Even though those may be improvements on the exterior of the building, those are also going to be fully deductible as qualified improvement property, which you're going to want to take advantage of during your expansion phases, because I'm assuming now you're making $500,000, $600,000, $1 million a year or more. You're already in a 50% tax bracket. You want to make sure that your tax advisor and preparer has the nitty-gritty details. Otherwise, what are they going to do? They're just going to write it off over 39 years. Okay, another often overlooked strategy here is you have your own dental practice, right? You have your own brick and mortar dental practice. If you have your own physical practice and you do work from your home, can you take a home office deduction as well? The answer to that is no. Home office deduction is only available to people, self-employed people, individuals, that work from their home and don't have other physical locations that they consider their primary place of business. So again, if you're an independent contractor and you work at 12 different dental offices and none of them provide you with a desk, a chair, a place to do paperwork and administrative work, and you do that stuff at home, then you can actually take a home office deduction for the expenses related to your home, whether it's your rental property, that you're, place you're renting or otherwise. There's an exception to that rule. You own your own dental practice, but you very often do work at home. So while you're at home, you have a room segregated that you bought a desk, a chair, a lamp, maybe you bought an area rug, a couple of computers, a printer, a scanner. All that equipment, if you're using it primarily for business purposes, even though it's located in your home, it's 100% tax deductible. A lot of people don't realize this. So you want to make sure that if you're spending money for your practice, even if you're using that equipment and furniture outside of your practice, definitely take advantage of it. Okay, and we're going to cover this. Look at depreciation and tax planning over time. Don't have tunnel vision when it comes to your deductions. Okay, another tax credit that is very often overlooked, but as part of our checklist, we go through this question with every client. So my accountants, my team of CPAs and enrolled agents in my office, we give them a checklist so that we don't miss any of these deductions. But as soon as we see you did some leasehold improvements or capital improvements in your office, first thing we ask you, did you do anything in your office to improve handicap accessibility? Did you do anything to make your property more accessible to the elderly? If you did, there's a good chance you could be entitled to what's called a disability access credit. This is a $5,000 tax credit that you could get each and every year you're in practice as long as you make these type of improvements. Now, the obvious things here are you created a handicap accessible bathroom. That's a no-brainer, right? You created a handicap ramp so somebody could get into your office with a wheelchair. That counts. But some of the things that may not be as obvious, let's say you're operating out of an office that used to be a home, and the width of the doors are not wide enough for someone to walk through there with a wheelchair. Well, now you expanded the width of those doors to make it more handicap accessible. That would qualify. Let's say you had a rug on the floor that was very difficult to walk on for an elderly person. You replace that floor, and now you have a smooth surface. you just made that office more handicap accessible. That will qualify for this handicap accessible credit as well. The other thing I tell my clients when it comes to this, if you're going to do handicap improvements, don't do them all in 1 year. Why? Because you have to spend, to get the full $5,000, you got to spend $10,250 or more to get the full $5,000 tax credit. But let's say you're about to spend $30,000 in handicap improvements to your office. Well, why not spread that over a 3-year period? Do some this year, we're going to get you a $5,000 tax credit. Do some next year, we're going to get you another $5,000 tax credit, and do some in the 3rd year. So this is a multi-year credit that if you put yourself in a position, you can take advantage of it. So while you're planning out your office expansion, I'm sure you're talking to your builder, I'm sure you're talking to your architect, but are you talking to your tax advisor? If you're not, you may have just lost $10,000 more in disability access credits. Okay, so there's some limitations here. I won't cover that there, but we'll move on to there, from there rather. So, by the way, this was the article I was talking about. So, I don't know if any of you orthodontists, by the way? No? Okay. Well, there's a very popular, it's actually a prestigious orthodontic journal, Seminar in Orthodontics, Volume 28, Number 1, the March issue this year. I go through in great detail, give terrific examples. Again, if you're thinking about buying a dental practice or maybe looking to sell one in the foreseeable future, definitely read that article. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email. I'll be happy to assist you further with that.